class is still over. No. Hey, everyone, how are we doing? I saw Dylan in the chat. Dylan, when I was looking at the video, I saw some stuff written by you. Now it's gone. Dylan, if you're here, I might message you on Discord. I saw your messages, and now they're gone. Let's see here. Are you still on? I saw your comments. Oh yeah, that's the decomp right there. So, hey, Cassandra, if you have any questions, let me know. My hair is just crazy today. It's one of those crazy hair days. Can we go over the pollution question? Yeah, is it the plants, right? The pollution plants? Let's go take a look at that. Let's get the pollution plants going. Dylan, I saw you. I think you typed it out. Let's go grab the pollution plant one. The toxic waste dump. Chapter 10, toxic waste dump question. Alea, you got it. I got more coffee. I think I fixed the streaming issue. I fixed it. Hopefully we have no lag. Chapter 10. Place questions. Getting it loaded up here as we speak. The car dealership? Yeah, the car dealership one. Or is that the... Oh, wait. Oh, chapter 10. Car dealership. Okay, wait. The car dealership. Can we give adults working at a bar question? Yeah, we can. Of course. Telephone. Oh, thank you so much. We got so many people here. Let's do it. Okay, so I need to write these down. And I literally find... Okay, so we've got... Let me write all these down, and then we'll try to do them one by one by one. Okay, so we got first... it's the car dealership pollution question. Car dealership pollution. Stat 201. Chapter 10. Thank you everyone for being here. 100 points. And then adults at a bar question next. So adults at a bar. Is that... What do they ask them there? Adults at a bar. And then next, telephone interviews. Let's find these. Telephone interviews. I'm writing them all down right now as we speak. Car dealership. Let's find them. Oh, is it? I think we found telephone interviews first. Okay. So let's do the telephone interviews first because we've got the telephone interviews. We're going to just do them as we find them. And so we got telephone interviews, and this is going to be at 3 minutes and 50 seconds in. Let's go do telephone interviews. So here we are with telephone interviews. So stay tuned. We're going to do all of these right here, but these are kind of harder to find. You'll see why in a moment as we go through these, because sometimes the questions change. But the first one today is telephone interviews. At the website, a polling company publishes results of a new survey each day. Scroll down to the end and look at the results. Results are based on interviews with 1,008 national adults. So they're going to call up people. So who do they want to talk to? What would you think? A, B, C, or D? Help me out right here with this. A, B, C, or D? Do they want to talk to everyone in the nation? Is that their population of interest? Do they want to understand everyone who they called? Do they want to understand everyone who responded? Or do they want to understand everyone who is 18 plus right here? Which one of these would be the population of interest? Results are based on national adults. Let's think. Ooh, there we go. What do you think? It's D. It says right here, national adults. So everyone in the nation would include like kids. So it's not going to be A, it's going to be 18 plus because it says adults. And then it literally says 18 years or older right there. Great work. 100 points in the chat. Good practice. The company performs a survey by generating phone numbers randomly. What is the sample frame? Now, this is where the mistakes often occur on this question. Now, the sample frame is everyone we have what to. So before looking at the answers, the sample frame is everyone we have what to. Usually there's a mistake on this one right here, but the sample frame, the definition of it, make sure you have it on a note card. The sample frame would be everyone we have what? Okay, maybe I get a phone survey. Not that we get the, Alea, good answer right there. Not that we get the data from. It wouldn't be everyone we get the data from. Everyone we have access to. Everyone we could possibly speak to. This is usually where the confusion arises because this one's kind of theoretical. It's theoretical because if you were to go to the library and talk to students, and you talk to 100 students, what would be your sample frame? So follow me with this. You go to Hodges Library to talk to students. Who's your sample frame in that sample? Who was your sample frame in that sample? Who was your sample frame in that sample? You go to Hodges Library to talk to students. You speak to 100 students. Who was your sample frame? So who was your sample frame? All students in the library at that time, exactly. So any student who was in the library, not the 100 you speak to, that's your sample. Great job, Alea, right there. Another 100 points. Students in Hodges Library at that time would be your sample frame. It's the people you could speak to. So who do you think? A, B, C, or D? Who are the people we could speak to? A, B, C, or D? Who are the people we could speak to? Who are the people we could speak to? Now be careful. Usually this is where the mistake happens on this one. Who are the people we could theoretically speak to in this sort of sampling method? A, B, C, or D. Don't worry if you get it wrong. That's the common misconception here, Sally. Don't worry. That's the common other 100 points. That's the common misconception. So we're randomly generating these phone numbers. So who could we speak to? I've got it on top chat still. So we're just practicing right here. And Maria sees it right there. Everyone with a telephone. Because, great job, Maria, right there. Anyone with a telephone could be spoken to. Now, the people who had their phone number generated are the ones we're going to attempt to speak to, but anyone with a phone number is who we could speak to. Does that make sense, Sally? That's where usually the mistake happens. Great job, Sally, right there with recovery. Excellent work. Good practice. That's the tricky one usually on this one. It's anyone with a telephone we could theoretically speak to. Doesn't mean we will speak to them. It's just theoretically possible that we could. If you have a telephone, we could talk to you. So what problem, if any, would you be concerned about matching? Yeah, so this is the problem right here, is that I think you can see it A, B, C, or D. What problem is there going to be for this? There's a few. All of these kind of make sense, but which of these makes the most sense, which is something you might think of right away if you want to talk to adults, especially if you go back when this was probably written in the earlier 2000s. A, B, C, or D, which one do you think it is? Well, C would be non-response bias, and maybe it depends. Well, and then these are people we just wouldn't speak to. But we want to understand adults, right? The population of interest is adults, and some people don't have cell phones, or don't have phones at all, like home phones, cell phones, wherever we're calling people on. So some people don't have phones. So if we want to understand adults, and we do it by phone, we're going to have a hard time reaching adults who don't have phones. Does that make sense? There's some decent answers here. Could you go over the coin question on 12? Yeah, we can do some coin question on 12 homework. You bet. Should get 100. Yay! That last one's the bias ones are a little bit tough. I've got it written down here, Cassandra. It's a few questions away, but stay tuned, Cassandra. We will do the coin question coming up here in just a little bit. Chapter 12 homework. Okay, going back to the main screen. I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's here right now. We're just blazing through some questions with everyone practicing along right here. So we're just going to keep doing questions. That's what we do right here. We're doing car dealership problem next. We can find it. We got car dealership and adults at a bar. I think this is the one with adults at a bar. It's car dealership and pollution, adults at a bar. Trying to find him. The bar question? We're gonna do the bar question. You got it. I'm trying to find it. Wait. Oh, that was the car dealership, I think. I just saw car dealership. You have to generate the questions a whole bunch of times to get the... Oh, here we go. Okay. So I'm going to explain why I'm doing it this way. Car dealership pollution. This is the one right here. I'll show it right here. Let's start this up. Mine says every 7th adult was asked about drinking and driving. Could be. That sounds like systematic. Let's go here and talk about car dealership pollution. And this is at 10:15. Let's do it. So the way this works, and you might be wondering, why is Brian working on a completed question? These questions change what they say on them. There's about tons of different versions. So I have to try to find a non-complete or completed version. And it sometimes takes a moment if you watch that in between segment. I was trying to find this. I'll show at the very end of this, me trying to find a question. Identify the population. Okay, so we're not going to look at the answers when we can't see them, but let's think about this. Researchers want to estimate the percentage of people who thought pollution is a serious problem. Who do researchers want to estimate? Who do researchers want to understand? Tell me just again, it's on the answer right there. But researchers want to estimate the percentage of people who think pollution's a serious problem. Who do researchers want to understand? Just if you saw that on your question, what's the population of interest? Who do they want to understand? That's what population means. Who do they want to understand? People. Now, we can't see the answer for the next one, but I can tell you the answer because it's researchers waited outside a randomly selected car dealership to question the people. They find usually 16%, or they find 16% of people believe pollution is a serious problem. Now, we have to know what parameter of interest is. Parameter of interest is what they want to understand about the group. So the population is who do they want to understand? The parameter of interest is what do they want to understand? So what are they asking people? What do they want to understand? You might be able to see the answer on your screen, but I can tell you at least what I think the answer will be. What do you think the answer will be that we can't see? So I think the parameter is what do they want to understand about the population? Like, what are they trying to research? What is their question that they're getting data on right here? So what is the parameter of interest? The parameter, and the only word of matter right here is parameter. Parameter means what they are researching about the population. Is pollution a serious problem right there? Alea, great work. So they want to know if pollution is a serious problem. Notice how this says is not a problem. No. They're trying to understand is pollution, or the proportion of people who think pollution is a serious problem. So the parameter is what they are researching. Do not be confused by things like population, parameter of interest. The only thing that matters here right now is parameter. Identify the sampling frame. So the sample frame are the people we have access to. Hey, Teresita, good to see you here. Oh, Teresita, yes. Ask questions if you got them. What are the only people we have access to right now? So we are going to go wait outside a randomly selected car dealership. So what are the only people we have access to? I can think of a few ways the sampling frame should look. The sampling frame are the people we have access to. So what are the people we have access to? We're not going to look at the answer yet. So what are the only people we have access to? It's a good way of doing the questions to see if you can tell the answer without looking at it. Car dealership customers, people who go to car dealerships, those are the ones we would possibly be able to speak to. People, great job. So car dealership customers, that would be it right there. People, no, these deal with parameters. All people except those who work at car dealerships, no, just customers pretty much defines it well. People leaving the car dealership. What office hours do you go over the project one? We haven't done that yet. I could put project one on here and we could talk about that. Project one, got it on the list. We did it during class today a little bit, and we can go and talk about that here in a little bit too. Maria, if you like. Identify the sample. What would be the sample right here? The sample is going to be what? So think about this. We're going to talk to people outside the car dealership. So people who go to car dealerships are possible people we could speak to. And then the sample are going to be what? The sample is the people we get data on. So you want a definition of sample, we would say the people we get data on. So what would be the sample? The people you talk to, yeah. The people we talk to. So we should see people leaving the car dealership. Now, I wish it was more specific on that. The people who answer our questions as they leave the car dealership. Like the people who actually, it says people, that's not specific enough. People, no, this deals with parameters like that. No, that's dealing with the parameter. It's just the things you get data on. So the actual people who respond to us and give us data about their thoughts. I wish it was more specific. Identify the sampling method. Now, this one's a bit interesting. I want you to think about this, though. We're going to a car dealership, and we're speaking to all people as they leave the car dealership. So we're speaking to everybody as they leave the car dealership. What does that sound like to you if you were in the morning class? We already reviewed this. If we speak to every person as they leave the car dealership, what does that sound like to you? A cluster sample at that location. So what you'll notice right here is we're speaking to everyone as they leave the car dealership. So that would be like a cluster at that location. So we should see something similar to that. Cluster at that specific location. So we're saying we're going to speak to all people at this car dealership location. So we randomly select the car dealership. We're going to say we're going to hang outside this car dealership and we're going to talk to everybody at this car dealership location. I wish it made more specific. We will write that on the test. Things like take everyone right here, but you're going to that and you're cluster sampling at that location. that's probably one of the hardest questions on this too, because does it say random? It says randomly selected, so they're randomly selecting a cluster. So that would remove the non-randoms. So I'd probably be between these two, but I've done this question a lot. And then they're taking everyone at that car dealership location. That's a tough one. Identify who, if anyone, was left out of this study. Well, we're going to car dealerships. So who's left out? Pretty simple and clear to see who's left out of this. We're going to car dealership locations to find out the views of people. So think about it. We want to understand people, and we're going to car dealership locations. So who is left out of this study? And I'll mention what kind of bias this would be, but we're going to car dealership locations to understand people. So who are we leaving out? We want to understand people, and we're sampling from car dealership locations. Who would be left out? So be like, okay, if I want to understand people, everyone who doesn't go to car dealerships. Like if you don't go to car dealerships, it's not like you don't go that day, but if I don't go to car dealerships, I probably never want to go to one again. Is systematic sampling? It should be random. Should be random. Good questions, Barrett. So people who do not go to car dealerships, exactly. People who do not go to car dealerships. Identify any potential sources of bias. So what kind of bias would this be if we're not getting enough people? I'm trying to think if I know the answer to this one off the top of my head. If we're not getting enough people who go to car dealerships or don't go to car dealerships, what are we doing to the people who don't go to car dealerships? We are whatting them. Think of a word, which I probably am going to look for. It should be the right answer on this, but we're whatting the people who don't. Under coverage, great job, Alea right there, 100 points. Under coverage. So if you notice, we can kind of see where the questions are going. We're undercovering the people who don't go to car dealerships. So always try to see where the question's going. Even though we had the answers right here, we were able to figure it out. Now I want to point out this question, you'll notice right here, changes every time I do it. Now it's going to be about researchers wait outside a fast food joint. Researchers wait outside a fast food joint. You see it's still fast food every time I do it. State police, there's state police question, fast food joint. So to get the question, sometimes I have to randomly generate it multiple times. And then if I get it completed or not completed, there's the car dealership completed again. So to get the questions, it randomly generates it. Would under coverage and response be correct if mine was systematic about a particular bar? I don't know what the response bias would be. Response bias is when the wording influences the researcher's behavior or the wording of a question. So Barrett, good questions right there, 100 points. Doesn't sound like there's response bias in that one to me. We could look up the bar question in a little bit here if you want. Tell me if you want to do the bar question. Say, yeah, do the bar question. We'll do that one. You can take a look here as we work through it. But I don't see any response bias in that because it would have to be the way in which the researcher asks the question or their behavior influences people to give a certain response. Like, do you think it's fair that you can go to war, but you can't drink a beer? Do you think we should lower the drinking age? That's response bias right there because I'm pushing you to be like, yeah, let's lower the drinking age because if you go to war, you should be able to drink a beer. So, because you can go to war at 18, but you can't drink a beer at 18. So that's response bias. Under coverage bias is when we don't have enough of a certain group. Like if we only go to car dealerships, we're not going to cover all people. I probably never want to go to a car dealership again after my experiences with buying a car. So you would never find me at a car dealership. I'm probably going to try to buy something off of I don't know, Craigslist or from family or something. I'd rather buy used cars from people than car dealerships because and I still get contacted from the car dealership I bought my car from. It took me 2 months to find a car. 2 months. Whew. Has anyone been to a car dealership? It's so funny. I'll tell you really, really quick stories here. Load up the next question right here. That would be huge because the car dealership makes sense, but the bar questions confuse me. Oh, yeah, so we do the bar question, yeah. We put bar question on here. We'll be doing it in a little bit here, Barrett. Chapter 10 here. We'll put it at the end of the chapter 10 stuff. Bar question. Oh, wait. We already have adults at the bars next. Okay, we're supposed to do it next anyways, Barrett. It is your lucky day. So when I was trying to get my car because someone hit my car literally. So my car got smashed because someone went through a red light. And then the insurance company paid out not enough money to replace my car. Little did I know when insurance companies give you money, it's not like you can get a car of your same quality So I was really bummed because I was looking for like this was in 2018. I was looking for like a 2012 Honda Accord, and they're like, oh, that'll be $16,000. And I was like, 16,000? And they're like, yeah, it's still really new. And I was like, but insurance company only gave me like 12,000. And they're like, well, too bad. That's why I drive a Nissan Altima now. But yeah, I just could not find a car of the same quality. It was driving me nuts. And with that, I go to these car dealerships and they would show the price of a car. Every time you talk to a car dealership about the price of a car, as I'm trying to find this question right here, you get everything finalized. Here we go, the buyer question, found it. You get everything finalized, and you're like, okay, so the car is 12,000, right? And you're like, yeah. And then you go in to do all the paperwork, and they're like, oh, well, there's a lot fee. There's a this fee. And you're like, you just said we had everything finalized. You said it's 12,500. And they're like, well, but we have to add on this. And they have to add on this. And you're like, I asked about taxes, everything. They said, is this the final number? And you said, yeah, but there's more. There's always more. And I would say, I'd go to these dealerships. I'd be like, look, when you tell me a number, it needs to be the final number. If this car right here is saying it's 12.5, I want to know with taxes. I want to know with lot fees. I want to know with everything. And they'd be like, oh, yeah. And so then we'd be like, okay, that one's 12.5. And then we walk in and be like, okay, but there's this. I'd be like, I would just walk. And then they'd start calling you on the phone. Oh, but we can take off. And I'd be like, I don't play like that. Just be honest with me. Keep getting calls. Anyways, don't love car dealerships. Okay, let's do the bar question right here. That's my story on car dealerships. I'm calling you for like a week and being like, sir, we still want to sell you that car that you looked at. And you say, nope. So here we are with the people outside a bar. They're stopping every 11th and asking them whether he or she thinks drinking and driving is a serious problem. I do want to take a moment here to say drinking and driving is a serious problem. Please call an Uber, call a Lyft, call a friend, call a family member, walk home, whatever you can. Do not drink and drive. I know you've heard that 1,000 times, but maybe one person will hear it and they'll say, you know what? Brian said I should call a Lyft or an Uber. I'm going to do that. Please do that. What is the population of interest right here? So the population is adults who would visit a bar. Let's see if it says that explicitly. Researchers waited outside a bar and randomly selected from those establishments. I don't love it on that. Researchers waited outside a bar. They stopped over. So the population of interest is the group we want to understand. We want to understand people who go to bars. People who go to bars. That is the population of interest. People who go to bars. If it did have all adults here, I would be a little bit scared. It does say the population is unclear. I don't like that it sometimes is not clear. It should say researchers want to understand people who go to bars, and maybe I'm missing where it says that. Researchers waited outside a bar. They'd randomly selected. They stopped every 11. Yeah, I wish it was a little bit more clear. Sorry about that. My Pearson let me down right there. What is the parameter of interest? Now, make sure you have the definitions. The parameter of interest is the thing we want to study, so help out everyone here in the chat. What is the parameter of interest? It's the thing we want to understand. So the parameter of interest would be what? It's the thing we want to understand. And remember, the only word that matters here is parameter. Parameter means the thing we want to understand about the population. So what do we want to understand about people who go to bars? What's up, Dylan? Good to see you. Dylan, I saw your questions. Can you retype them? I saw them, and then I reloaded the chat when I was starting the video, and they disappeared. I think, I sent you that on Discord, right? Real me this time. Was it not you? Is drinking and driving a serious problem? That is correct right there, Dylan. I mean, not Dylan, Barrett right there. That is the parameter of interest, what we are measuring, what we're trying to understand about the population. Do remember that parameter is the only word. Population parameter of interest, that's just extra. That was, oh, was it? Oh, weird. That's so weird. What is the sample frame? Now, the sample frame are the people we have what? Oh, really? It must have been. Yeah, it must have been. The sample frame are the people we have what to? The sample frame are the people we have what to? The sample frame are the people we have what to? Oh, nice. I hope it went well, Dylan. Access. So who could we possibly speak to? If we go outside a bar and we try to talk to people, we could speak to people who what? If we go outside a bar and we speak to people leaving the bar, then the people we have access to are people leaving the bar. And it's not everyone we speak to who leaves the bar, because those are the ones who'd be in our sample. but it would be anybody leaving the bar. So the patrons at the chosen bar. Now, we might not talk to all of them, but the patrons who leave the bar. All the people who go to that bar are the people we could speak to. Exactly. What is the sample? The people who what to us? So remember, the sampling frame is the people who are at that bar. The sample is going to be what? I think it did. Oh, no. I bet you did great, Dylan. You're really great at coding and stuff. And 474 is a lot of coding. Great work. The sample would be the people who what? The sample would be the people who what? I'm going to drink 3 cups of coffee today. Oh, it would be every 10th. Or yours is 10th, maybe mine is 11th. That because this is a systematic sample. So it would be every 11th adult leaving the bar. That sounds right there. Great job. Systematic right there. That's a systematic sample every blank. Now, you would technically start at a random starting point, but every blank leaving the bar. What? Say it with me again. If you see in the question, now technically it should say we start at a random starting point, select every 11th adult, but just this alone, say it with me, remind yourself of it, type it out so that way you remember it a little bit better. If you're working on this at home right now, you should know when you see the TH, a layer right there sees it. It is systematic, definitely systematic. So all we need to look for is systematic right here, and we see it. Systematic. Is the sampling method used random? Is systematic sampling random sample? Is a systematic sample a random sample? Is it part of our random sampling method? I know it doesn't say random, but are these the good ones that we spend a lot of time learning about after we do bias? Is systematic random? Yes. These are the good ones. These are good. Put here good sampling designs. These are the good ones that we like. So we like simple random sample, we like systematic, we like stratified, we like cluster, we like multi-stage. When done properly, like you could make mistakes on these, but systematic is a good sampling design. I know it doesn't say random there. You could just add random to it. It's called systematic sampling, but it is a random sampling design. We like these. Barrett, great job following along. This is a good sampling design right here. So we do like it. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Great practice. I know we got some big homework assignments coming up. So yes, it's random. Yeah, it's random. Who was left out of this study? Well, so it gets a little tricky. Completely unrelated to anything, but working on it. Just a shiny. Oh yeah, to use import font awesome icons in place that don't explicitly use. Would you give me a specific example? Like you want to use them where, with how? So tell me more about that, Dylan. You want to use font awesome in some way where it's not normally used, but yeah, go into more detail because that sounds very interesting. Like with a RMD file. I'm trying to think. Who was left out? This is where I'd have to look at the question answers. People who don't go to that bar, maybe? People who don't go to that bar is what I'm thinking. Who's left out? People who don't go to that bar because they're cluster sampling at that location. Like, well, not necessarily clustering. Any adult want to go to a bar, yeah. That sounds right. They're doing a systematic, but it's at that location. So it's a systematic sample at that location. I should have said that. Systematic at that location. Pleat bars, yeah, other than this one, exactly. And that kind of makes sense. If we think about it that way, any adults who lit the bars, oh. Yeah, that's really a mean question right here, Barrett. Any adults who left bars other than the one chosen? Well, their purpose. This is where I'm glad we're doing this one. This one could maybe trick me, Barrett. This one could maybe get me because they're kind of alluding to. Yeah. I like when a font awesome to show up besides the text. I know that is evil right there. I don't like that. I can see how people would miss that one. That's because the way it's worded, I guess they're talking about like, I agree, Summer, not cool. You know what we should do? Let's add like 4 points to this quiz. Let's just sprinkle on some. Let's curve it 4 points here at the end. Yeah, I agree, Barrett. That's where I'm just like, I don't like that answer. I probably would have missed that one if we were doing this one like normally, because I got to that and I was like, I think what they're talking about is like they purposely left out. Like it should say who was purposely left out of this study. Does that make sense? Like if we said who was purposely left out of this study, like not who are we leaving out maybe by a bias, but who are we purposely excluding from this study? Or who was excluded from this study? Adults who would not go to a bar. Does that make sense? Like who was excluded? I think that's what they're trying to say. Not some sort of bias right here, but who was excluded from the study. Like excluded means we just are not interested in them. So I think if we worded it that way, which is how when we write tests, we often like confer on how these things should be worded. I would suggest we say who was excluded from this study. And the population makes that clear because we're only concerned about adults who go to bars. And this question should have a preamble like concerned about how adults who go to bars hold views on drinking and driving. And then you would know. And then who was excluded from the study? It would be adults who don't go to bars. So that would be a better way of doing it right there. What type of bias is evident? So we'll go down here. Undercoverage and response bias. Oh. Wow. I do not like this question. No wonder. Yeah, we're throwing a 4-point curve on this. Well, Dylan, you were right. Or not Dylan. Barrett, you were right. It is undercoverage and response bias. Don't understand. I feel like I need to contact my Pearson on this question. I need to say, you need to remove this question. I do not agree with this question in many ways. This question is public enemy number 1 now. Glad we're doing it. What problems can you see? And then since there is bias, there will be problems. Is anyone else having weird audio feedback? Tell me. I've made more changes. Is everyone else's audio good right now? Tell me. I've made a lot of changes. I've been trying to fix things. But they want to understand people leaving a bar, Barrett. That's the issue, is they want to understand people leaving a bar. So if they want to understand all people, that's an issue. But response bias is the way in which the surveyor asks the question will influence people's behaviors, like the way the question is worded or the way I'm interacting. So we should have seen more on like the way the question is worded. Good on audio, good. So Dylan, check. I have made some changes, but we're going to see if we have no longer have reconnect issues because I've made some big changes. Adults leaving bar may think differently. I hate this question. I need to. It is a very. Barrett, 500 points. I agree. This is a bad. I haven't seen a. I don't know why. Check out the wiring right there. 500 points, Barrett, right there for going out and saying it's a very, very poor question. I do agree. Do not like this question. I'm shocked it's undercoverage and response bias. I just told you a little bit ago it wasn't, and I stand by it. But answer it that way for my Pearson. Well, with that, we're going to head over to our next section right here. We got the Chapter 12 coin question. Barrett, if you have more questions, let me know. We're going to do Chapter 12 coin. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Of course, Barrett, of course. Yeah, no, I'm glad we did it because I'm shocked. That question would have caught me off guard. I would have got like a 60 and been like, what? I'd have been like, I can define everything for you. Sometimes the person who writes, I feel like I need to talk to my Pearson and be like, hey, look, we need to fix a few of your questions. We need to go in there and fix a few of these. My Pearson, what are you doing? We got my Pearson contacts. I've often thought we should like make our own canvas everything. So the coin question is the one. The coin question on the homework. I think the question. I'm having a question on the points Bebop gives. How much extra credit? You can get up to 1.2 in your final grade, and you can check them by doing exclamation mark points. Shamelessly copy everything they have. I know we'd get in trouble then. They'd be like, oh, you left my Pearson, but you copied everything we have. Can't do that. Who knows? So you can check your points anytime with exclamation mark points. You can get up to 1.2 points. I'm at a ridiculous. I'm at hamster tier. So you can get up to 1.2. The 0.01 is I don't think it'll ever get anyone to the next level, but there's just meme tier point levels. So check out your points, see where you're at. Mubot will tell you. And at the end of the semester, I add it in and give you your points. Let's go look at the points, the coin question right here. I think the one people wanted was this one. Let's find out. Here we go. Dylan all the way up there at Brian tier. Keep getting higher, Dylan. You got this. Okay. So here we are with flipping a coin. When we flip a coin, what could happen? I think this is the one people wanted. We're talking about the sample space now. So let's differentiate two words. We have here sample space, and we have here sample frame. So we need to differentiate these two words. Sample space is a chapter 12 term. And let's put chapter. I feel like 12 term. Chapter 12 term. And this is a chapter 10 term. I just submitted my quiz. Barry, let me take a look at that next right here. Was it on that question? I'll take a look at that next, Barrett. You got it. So a sample frame is going to be all possible combinations of things we could sample. This is in, oh my gosh, reversing it, because I had it up there a second ago. And the sample frame is all possible things in a population we could sample. So we could, that could occur. All possible hundreds of things that could occur. There we go. Fix the definitions. Okay. Okay. Oh, is your personal account? Oh, tell me we can split them up, Dylan. We can put them back on the other account. So we can fix that up for you, Dylan. So the sample frame is all possible things we could sample, like with the bar questions, all people walking outside of the bar. The sample space is all possible combinations of things that could occur. So when you think about this, let's look at the sample space here for chapter 12 with the probability questions. If you flip a coin 2 times, what is the possibilities of heads and tails that could occur? And it's also going for the ways in which it could occur, not just like heads, tails, heads, tails, tails, heads. What would it be? A, B, C, or D? Like all the combinations of ways things could occur if you flip a coin 2 times. Like I flip it and it's heads and it's heads. Nice. If you try to flip a coin 2 times, good work there, Dylan. What is all the combinations of things that could occur? All the combinations with respect to the order of the combinations. You flip a coin 2 times. What are all the combinations of ways things could occur? And with respect to order, it'd be B. So right here, it could be heads, heads. So you flip it and you get heads and you get heads. Heads, tails, tails, heads, tails, tails. With respect to order, you could get heads first, then tails, or tails, then heads. And this is going to be right here. Yeah, I can do the football one. You got it. I'm going to check out Barrett's work next. Let me write this down. And Maria, did you want to do the project? Let me know if you want to do project. So Barrett, football question. I think it's football team question. All right, let's do that. We got it in the sheet. Thank you so much right there for Alea for asking. And so now we have to ask, are they equally likely? Now, not, oh, you got it. We'll do project next then after Barrett's thing. And then we'll do your question next, Alea. So, because Maria asked about the project first. Thank you so much, everybody. Are the outcomes equally likely? What is the probability of getting heads and then heads when you flip a coin? Who can tell me the probability you flip a coin, you get heads, and you get heads? So if you flip a coin 1 time, 50% probability of heads, and you flip it a second time, 50% probability of heads. What is the probability of getting heads and getting heads when you flip a coin? 2 heads. The probability would be what? And you'll notice something interesting when you find this probability. They are all equally likely. And the probability of getting heads and heads is what percent of the time would this occur? If they are all equally likely, then this would have a what probability? This would have a what probability? This would have a what probability? This would have a what? Think about how many outcomes there are. The project, yep, we're doing project next. You got it. Yep, Jalen. So they'd all have a what probability? They would all have a what probability? If this are equally exactly, Maria, great work, Maria, they'd have a 1/4 probability. And that's because 0.5 times 0.5 is 1/4, 0.5 times 0.5 is 1/4. Now, heads, tails, without any order, has a half chance of occurring, but with the heads, tails, heads, has a 1/4 if we describe it that way with the order mattering. So that is correct. Be very careful. They do switch the order of no and yes on this question. Next, we see we have a family and they're having some boys or girls. So we have right here a number of boys in the family, and we're having 2 children. How many boys could you have if you have 2 kids? So maybe you're in a 2-kid family. I'm in a 3-kid family, so that doesn't apply. My brother has 2 children. He has 2 boys. So that would eliminate these answers right here as possibilities. We're down to this one or this one. How many boys can you have if you have 2 kids? So if you have 2 kids, what would be the possibilities for the amount of boys you could have? C or D? C. Now think about this. Now, I think about the Wayans brothers. If you know about the Wayans brothers, I think they have like 10 siblings. I always liked the Wayans brothers growing up. They had a lot of TV shows, especially like the Wayans brothers TV show. Go check out some, I guess, 90s TV Wayans brothers. Oh man, such a good TV show. And so with that, if they have 10 children, is it equally likely that there'll be 10 boys, 9 boys, 8 boys, 6 boys, 7 boys, 5 boys, 4 boys? Are those all equally likely? When it comes to a family of 10 kids, would it be equally likely to have 10 boys as it would be to have 5 boys? Just think about this for example for a moment. Is 10 boys as equally as likely as having 5 boys? So if you have 10 kids, for part A, which part A what? Part A was the coin flip thing about what was the sample space of coin flips, I think you're talking about. So if you have 10 kids, would having 10 boys have the same probability of 5 boys? Yep. So think about this. You have 10 kids. Is it the same chance that you'll have 10 boys as it would be that you have 5 boys? Does one of those seem more likely? Like if you have 10 kids, let's say you have 10 kids now. A lot of kids, right? Is it as equally likely that you would have 10 boys as you would have 5 boys? These are just things that could occur. If you have 10 kids, you could have 10 boys, 9 boys, 8 boys, 7 boys, 6 boys, 5 boys. Which of those seems more likely or less likely, or are they equally likely? Is it like the same probability of like 10 boys or 5 boys? Is that the same probability? They don't have the same probability. The probability of having 10 boys, let's say the probability of having boys 50%. The probability of having 10 boys would be 0.5 to the 10th power. So because it's that you have a boy and 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 a boy, and you would have 10 boys in a row, and that would be the probability right there. It's very unlikely if a family has 10 children that they'll all be boys. Exactly, you're more likely to have 5. So the same thing works here. Just think about this. If you think about families, if you think about what would be most likely here, that they'd have 0, 1, or 2 boys. What would be the more likely thing? If you think of a family with 2 kids, the most likely thing is what? What do you think? If a family with 2 kids, the most likely thing would be what? So a family with 2 kids, would it be that none of them are boys, both of them are boys, or one of them is a boy? So when you think about a family, the most likely thing when it comes to how many boys there would be if there's 2 kids is it's like, well, there'd probably be about this many boys. It's more likely that there would be this. This would be more likely than the other ones. The more likely thing would be that there's how many boys? If there's 2 boys, 1, exactly. So like if a family has 4 kids, you'd probably think, like if I tell you nothing, I know a family with 4 children in it, you might guess that how many of them are boys. So this will help explain it too. If you know that a family has, so we'll say they're not equally likely. If a family had in it, watch out, they do switch sides. If a family had 4 kids, you might be like not saying this is true, but you'd say maybe this many of them are boys. If a family had 4 children, you might think how many are boys. If a family had 4 kids, you might be like, maybe this many are boys. How many would you think? Family has 4 kids. How many would you guess are boys? Just taking a guess. This is a person's family. I knew. How many would you guess are boys? If a family has 4 kids, you might be like, maybe this many are boys? Because just think about what you kind of would think about the world. 2. Great job, Maria, right there. You'd guess 2. And that's my mom's family for a little while. My mom's family was 4 people or 4 children, and they were all girls. So my grandparents had girl, and then they had a boy. So they had 4 kids, and they were all boys. Very unlikely. So think about as they're having all these girls, and my grandfather, my uncle got his name because he was probably like, oh boy, like, you know, went to Chrome and signed out. Nice job, Dylan, right there, with all the points. So this one's a little bit weird. So listen to how this one goes. We're gonna flip a coin until we get heads. If we get heads, we'll stop. Or, if we get tails, we'll stop. If we get my family's 3 girls, yeah, exactly. And then people are like, wait, there's no boys. And you're like, no, no boys. They're like, God, it's not as likely, right? You'd think there'd be at least 1 boy, but, and then if your parents have another kid, it's close to maybe a 50-50 probability of boy-girl. So then you might be 4 girls. You never know. I don't know. Maybe they were like, no more kids. My Uncle Joe was born very late. My aunt was like in her 20s or so when my Uncle Joe was born. Because 5 kids, space out. So this question right here is going to be, if we get tails, we stop. So what is one possibility? When I flip the coin right here, it could land what? And I would just stop. What is the possibility when I flip this coin, and then I would just stop right there? Nice job. I love Brianception. What is a possibility that could occur? I flip the coin, and it lands this, and I just stop. That's the end of it. That's what happened. That's what we observed. So the question says, if we flip tails, we stop. At any point during this experiment, when we're flipping the coin, if we flip tails, we stop, right? So what is one thing we should see in the sample space? What should we see in the sample space right here? One thing we should see in the sample space is simply a blank. Like it means we flipped it and we stopped. So what should be something that could occur when we're doing this trial of we flip the coin, if it lands on tails, we stop. Just tails, Maria, great job. Now we've narrowed it down to these answers. But then we will also stop if we get 3 heads. So 3 heads is a possibility. If we get 3 heads, we'll stop. So is it A or B, Maria? So if we get tails, if we flip tails, that's what happened. We got tails, we stopped. If we flip 3 heads, we also stop. So is it A or B? Knowing that if we flip tails, we stop. That's like anytime if we flip tails, like if I get heads, then tails, I would stop. That's something that could occur. Like I flipped, I got heads. Okay. Flip again, I got tails. That's what happened. It's B. Yep. Because this is meaning we could have flipped and gotten tails. That's a possibility of what could have occurred. We could have gotten heads, then tails. We could have gotten heads, then tails. We could have also gotten heads, and then heads. What is the probability of getting tails on a coin? Like if you think of when we flip the coin the first time, what is the probability of getting heads? Like the probability of getting heads right here would be what? So if you just flip a coin, what is the probability you'll land on heads? I mean tails, sorry. Either which way, 50%. So the most likely thing to occur with this is that we will simply just get tails because tails has a 50% probability. The other ones have the remaining, this would be 25, this would be 12.5, 12.5, and I could go into details on how those would be solved, but right there it's 0.5 times 0.5 and 0.5 times 0.5 times 0.5. So with these right here, they have smaller probabilities. Are all these equally likely? No, because the most likely thing is that we'll just get tails and stop. Then the next likely thing is that we'll get heads, then tails. And then these are less likely. It's less likely that we will go to 3 coin flips. So they are not equally likely. The most likely thing is that you just get tails on your first flip and you stop. The other ones are subsequent probabilities based on not getting tails, which are the remaining 50% probability of where you got a heads. And then you go down this path of either getting tails or having to continue further. The last one is when you roll 2 dice and you record the smaller number. So what are the possibilities to get on a fair 6-sided dice? A, B, C, or D? We're going to take 2 dice in our hands, and we're going to roll the 2 dice. So what are the possibilities here? A, B, C, or D? We take 2 dice, we roll them, and what are the 2 possibilities? What are not 2? What are the 6 possibilities right here on a fair-sided dice? A, B, C, or D? So we've got fair dice in our hands. We roll them, and we do this right here. So we roll 2 dice. Boop. And what are the possibilities that we could record? We're going to record the lowest number on the dice. So we have 2 dice, and we roll the lower number. And we record the lower number. What are the possibilities? A, B, C, or D? We're going to look at the dice, and we say, okay, the lowest number of these 2. And here, I'll simulate this to show it. This one really works well with a simulation. I've got so much RStudio open right now. I've got... Okay. Might have been C, Maria. I think you might be right. Here, we'll take a look over here. Got so many things. Okay. So let's take a look right here. And let's run this. So what we're going to do is we're going to have dice. And the dice is going to be 1 through 6. And we are going to sample the dice. And this right here. And let's sample... And let's sample 2 and replace equals true. Okay, so Maria, which of these numbers would I select right here? Which of these numbers would I select right here? Which of these numbers would I select? So I'm going to take the lower of the 2 dice. So which of those numbers would I select right here? Which of those numbers would I select? Which of those numbers would I select right here, Maria? So I'm going to take the lower of the 2. So I rolled 2 dice. So here's what I'm doing right here. I'm rolling 2 dice, and I'm going to take, well, now it's a different example. I'm going to take the lower of the 2 numbers. So I rolled 2 dice, I got a 4, and I got a 2. So which of those numbers would I record as the number I rolled? I'm going to record the lower of the 2 number. So I rolled 2 dice, drop them on the table, and which of these numbers am I recording? Might work better if you see it this way. So with this picture on the screen right here, which of these numbers would be recorded? I rolled 2 dice. So which of those numbers would be recorded right there with this picture on the screen above my head? Which of those numbers would I record? Who knows in the chat right here? Which of these numbers right here would I record? I'm going to record the lower of the 2 numbers. Which of those numbers would I record? Here's the 2 dice. They're rolled. I rolled 2 dice. I got a 3. I got a 4. And which of those numbers would I record? So I'm going to record the lower of the 2 numbers. Which of those numbers? So I'm going to... Does that make sense right there, Maria? We're going to record the lower of the 2 numbers. So whichever one of these is smaller will be the one that we write down. Which number will we write down? The smaller one is the one we'll write down. So we would write down 3. So when you think about this, the way this works right here with the question is in the question, we're recording the lower of the 2 numbers. We have these options. And with the lower of the 2 numbers being recorded, what number here would be very hard to record? Well, if we're always recording the lower number, the only way to record a 6 is to record or have it roll 6 and 6, because the lower number is the one we're keeping. As in my examples right here with the dice, if I roll these dice again, I would record 1. I'd record 4, 3, 2, 2, 2. Wow, that was weird. 4, 3, 2, 5. Ooh, that was pretty high right there. 3, 1, 1, 5. I'm also looking at the lower number 3. And probably the easiest way to do this is just have it say the min of this. And if you notice, we're going to get a lot of lower numbers, because the only way for it to get 6 right here, which it's not getting very often, we haven't seen it yet any, it would have to roll 2 6s, which you haven't seen at all. It has a 1 in 36 probability of doing it. And every time I do it, it has that 1 in 36 probability, and we're not... Oh, finally did it. In this instance, it rolled 6 2 times. So it was very unlikely, because to record a 6, you'd have to record... oh, yeah, Monte Carlo, exactly. Now we recorded a 5 right here. Exactly. We could run it and take a look. We could for loop it pretty quickly. But that's the good things we want to think about, especially with advanced stuff. So these are not equally likely. They're not equally likely. A 6 would be less likely to occur. And that's got it. That's a really good question with sample spaces and goes into some deeper topics on Monte Carlo simulations. All that great stuff. Great stuff. It's time for a little project talk. Let's go talk about the project. Oh, I got to look at Barrett's thing. Let me, between the session right here, look at Barrett's stuff. Take a look right here. Got to go to the other class. Who's ready for some project talk? It is time for project talk in a second. Let me see. I think that's the recent one. Well, it might be like different questions that we didn't do. This is a tougher quiz. Okay, I see. It was different questions. If you have more questions, let me know. It is good practice. I think they're working on the other one. Doing another shot right there. Awesome. Let me leave this screen. Did Brian cover any 475 during this officers? Not yet. Not yet. You could, Kelton, if you got some questions, let me know. We're doing some more time series regression coming up here with the assignments. Barrett, you figured it out. Nice job, Barrett. And great work. It's a tough quiz. Get that 100 on it. Get that 100, Barrett. You got this. Let's go talk about the project. I'm going to go take a timestamp right here. Yay. I love it. People are helping out and discording each other. It's the way to go. We got the football question and we got project 1. So let's do project 1 right here and then we'll do football. 57, 45. Stat 201. Project 1. Okay. Let's go check this out. So a big thing I want to point out is if you're in my sections, I have posted a rubric. All my sections have a rubric posted for the project, but I think it's going to apply to pretty much all sections. And I want to show you the rubric I've posted that they can see, and it's going to help with making sure you get full points right here. So I'm pulling up the rubric as we speak for project 1. Project 1. It's loading. Come on, project 1 rubric. Here we go. And here's the rubric. So with the rubric that's posted for all the sections, all my sections to see, I use this because it just really helps you see exactly what you're doing. Awesome, Kelton. And let's take a look. There are 3 things. We've gone over this class. There are 3 things you need to do in your project. For your executive summary. Your executive summary should have a statement of the problem. Who is the report for and what is being researched? So who's the report for? What's the point of this? Kind of an introduction to the report. Here's what we're doing. Can project 1 should be turn-inable. There's submissions. Leo, let me know, Leo. It should be open. It should be open. Unless I've made some sort of error to it. But Leo, can you message me? Leo will take a look. So make sure statement of the problem. Who's it for? What's it about? Next, and this is where our points are lost, results are detailed with numeric backing. This is a big section right here in the overall results of the executive summary. This is where people lose points. People do not give numeric backing enough. Look at where you can get 1 point. Results are given but limited numeric backing. Look at right here. No numeric backing is given. What do we mean by numeric backing? We mean you're actually quoting numbers. I'll do an example of this here in a moment, but if we talk about numeric backing, we need you to quote the numbers from the report. Next, you have an action item. The action item is, well, what are we going to do? So think about this. Who's the report for? Awesome. Let me take a look here, Leo. I'll take a look at that next. Let me put it on my sheet. Check Leo's DMs. Maybe I changed something that broke it, but yeah, we'll take a look. The question and answer. The PTA booth is convenience sampling, and it should be under coverage. So PTA booth is convenience with undercoverage. And so make sure to give numeric backing. That's like the number one way I see people losing points right here is they don't give numeric backing. We'll show some examples out here in a moment. And then the action items are, what are we going to do? You want to be specific on that. You want to be very specific. Now you get down to the future research. Future research goes beyond your report. You need to go into ideas that are beyond your report that are not covered in the written report. Next, you have the neatness and grammar, which is generally easier points to get, but don't make sure good grammar, good neatness of your project. You could lose points here if it looks kind of crazy. Instructions in report, or that's an error right there on our part. Kind of meta. Hey, Anders, great to see you. Good to see you. I think I know. Is that hamster tier level? Because I'm at hamster tier. You might still be. I don't think I reset the points. I think I know which Anders that is. So I think, right? Tell me if I'm wrong. With this, let's go take a look at the project right here. Here we go. Let's bring it up and take a look at what we'll be doing and talk about kind of what to write. So with this, let's go ahead right here and start with executive summary. Oh, it's diamond tier Anders right there. Did I reset the points? It did. I don't know. I don't know what I do. Maybe I'm confusing people. What's the cutoff for hamster tier? I can't remember. Good question. We'll have to check that out between sections there, Dylan. I think it's like 150,000 is hamster tier. Something like that. So you never know what levels there's going to be. You never know. New levels every day. So who is this report for? What are we researching about them? Give results 1 with numeric backing. Give finding, let's say finding 1. This is a decent way to think about your assignment right here. And I'm going to show you why. This is the first part right here. This is the next part. And then lastly, give action item 1 with reasoning. Give action. Okay. Now it's going to be longer than this when you write it all out. But look at this right here. How many sections? Oh, nice. Well, don't worry. They're all just fun tier levels. 3 RA governor's school position. Got it. Congratulations. 100 points right there, Anders. Congratulations. How many sections are you graded on in your executive summary? Congratulations, Anders, right there. How many sections are you graded on in your executive summary? How many sections are there for your executive summary by which you're graded on? So everyone can see right here pretty clearly with the color coding. How many different sections are you graded on in your executive summary? Ah, careful, 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 Leo. Check the color coding. How many sections are there that you're graded upon? You want to introduce the report. Who is it for? What is being researched? So there is executive summary, future research, and neatness. But the executive summary has how many sections to it? That the points for executive summary are broken down into how many sections. The executive summary is broken down into how many sections of getting points. So the executive summary, which I'm kind of showing visually right here, is broken down into how many sections where you get points. It has exactly. So there's 3 sections to the executive summary, like 3 areas by which you're graded. Like that top part gets a grade, this part gets a grade, this part gets a grade. So this is a summary of what you'll be doing here. Like this is not actual like executive summary, but like the executive summary is going to cover like who is this report for, what is being researched. So you want to make sure you're clear about that. Next, you're going to be giving your findings with numeric backing, and then you're going to give the action item. Action items are like, we should do this because the data says this. Does that make sense? Like an action item, I think a lot of people are confused on that, is like, if I'm researching right now, let's say office hours, Brian should hold additional office hours on Friday because of student demand. Survey shows students want, like we did a poll of students and we found that 90% of students want office hours on Friday. That would go in the where. If I said we did a poll of students and we found that 90% want office hours on Friday, that would go in the blue, yellow, or pink section. Which would it go in? We did a poll of students and found that 90% of students want office hours on Friday. And look, 90% is a numeric backing. Numeric backing would be nice, to be honest. I know I have so many meetings on Friday. Usually Friday I'm in like departmental meetings and stuff. So if we said 90% of students wanted office hours on Friday from our poll that we did, that would go into the yellow section with numeric backing, because 90% is numeric backing. But then if at the end we're talking about, due to the interest in office hours on Friday with 90% of the students' approval, we suggest that Brian hold office hours on Friday. That would go down here as an action item. Does that make sense? What an action item is the action item is like based on the data. So an action item would be we suggest that Brian hold office hours on Friday due to the surge in interest with 90% of students wanting office hours on Friday. Who is the report for? This report was conducted for Brian Stevens by Brian Stevens to analyze his students and their interest of whether or not office hours are meeting their goals. This report was conducted during the spring semester of 2022 and covered Stat 201, BAS 320, and BAS 475 students. Does that make sense? I am researching those students. This is a fake poll that I'm making up as I'm talking about it, but this report was analyzed for Brian Stevens by Brian Stevens to understand the views of his 201, 320, and 475 students and their need for office hours. That told you what we're trying to research. We're researching the need for office hours. When are we doing it? We're doing it during the spring of 2022. Who's this report for? It was written for Brian Stevens by Brian Stevens. So that's all up here telling us who this report was for, what it's covering, and what we're trying to understand about the students. Next, we get into the numeric backing or the findings. Like we researched students asking what day was most convenient for them to attend office hours. 70% of students responded with Wednesday. We asked them mornings versus evenings. Students responded resoundingly that 95% wanted morning office hours. These are just like the numeric backings of what you found in the report. You're just giving the findings of like, we found that 95% of students wanted morning office hours. You're not saying what to do with it yet. Morning office hours would go down here as something to say, due to the results of students wanting morning office hours and also 90% wanting Friday office hours, it is a suggestion that Brian hold morning office hours on Friday at 10 a.m. If that works for him or something like that. Does it make sense right here, Leo and everybody, what the goals of each of these sections are and how they differ and what they are? What are you trying to understand? Like, who's the report for? What are you trying to understand? What did you find? Give the numeric backing. Like, a lot of people lose points because they don't give the numeric backing. If you're not quoting numbers, I can usually look at someone's executive summary pretty quickly and tell you if they're not going to get points because I don't see numbers. If I don't see like 90% of students wanted the office hours, 75% wanted on Wednesday or something, if I don't see the numbers, then I'm like, you've already lost a point. You're already at like limited numeric backing. And maybe if you're like saying the numbers, like I'll have to look and I'll be like, okay, what kind of numeric backing are they giving from the report to back their findings or to show their findings? Like, be specific. The numbers are very specific. And then last but not least, you want to give action items with your reasoning. You don't want to just say Brian should hold office hours on Friday. You could say due to the resounding support. Feel like too long is fine. Tell me if they take off points for being too long. Tell me, and I'll probably get points back. I don't like it when the graders take off points for it being too long. Executive summaries, they can't be the length of the full report. Now, if you just took the whole report and turned in like a 3-page executive summary or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, that was too long. 2 pages too long. If your executive summary starts to go over a page, you've really hit that too long. I think, Maria, is yours like 2/3 of a page, half a page? You're probably all right. If your executive summary is looking half a page, 2/3 of a page, you're probably all right. If it's over a page, you probably need to let me see it. What else are you thinking, Maria, right here? We'll talk about the future research next. But future research. And this is its own thing. We're going to give it its own color code. Ideas that go beyond the report. Let's say idea that goes beyond report 1. Idea that goes beyond report 2. Idea that goes beyond report 3. Okay. It's hard to create like a template to do this, but there we go. It's just a big paragraph, not a page. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, it sounds like you're fine. If you want to send it to me, I'll look it over, Maria. But it sounds like you're fine. Great work. Yeah, that sounds like you're doing the right amount. I think you're pretty good. You can send it to me and I'll look it over. I give a quick like scan of it and then I give my suggestions. So when you do future research and you want to kind of give more ideas than just like, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. But these are ideas. They're not action items. We're not going to like, it's not like we need to make this change beyond because of the report. This is its own thing. Future research could be like, Brian should analyze the views of 474 students. What do you notice about 474 students? If you listen to when I was giving my report, I didn't analyze them. Like Brian should conduct this research with 474 students next semester because I didn't do it. So this is something we didn't do in the report. It's not an action item necessarily because we don't have the data yet. So Brian should collect data next semester on the views of 474 students. While you might be thinking that's an action item, it's not based on the data in the report. It's where do we go from here? So we're giving ideas like one suggestion we have from this is that Brian collect data on students for 474 for next semester, since they were not included in this report. Analyzing them to see if they follow these patterns might bring insight into if they have the similar needs. Additionally, Brian could have included questions related to this and this in the survey to analyze blah, blah, blah. Brian could have included questions related to, do you like MuBot? And then to find the students' views on MuBot and whether or not students are happy with MuBot these days. Are MuBot, you doing all right, man? I think we got multiple MuBots these days. Is he? Oh my gosh, one talks and one doesn't. Why is there a second MuBot? Where is he at on here? No worries. Well, MuBot has a twin now. I'll have to figure that out. I don't know who doesn't like MuBot, but that was not included, and that would go into future research. Future research could analyze whether or not students like MuBot, because we didn't analyze that here. So these are ideas that go beyond the report. Beyond the report is this. It has to go beyond what we did. Does that make sense? Like, you're going beyond the report. Your goal is not to rehash the report in future research, but to go beyond it and ask questions and look into, like, it's more of like, what should we do? So it can be, yeah, it's a brainstorming session. Does that make sense? It's more like a brainstorming session, Maria. It's like more like, well, where do we go from here? Not action items like, what are we going to do based on the report? This is, what are we directly doing? This is, well, what could we start looking into, or what could we, future ideas we could come up with? So this goes beyond the report. So you want to go beyond the report. The reason I'm highlighting this in blue right here, is because it's not part of the report. Brainstorming session. So you're trying to come up with new ideas. It's very open-ended. You just don't want to go through the report. The way students lose points right here is they just start rehashing the report. They put the action items down here. Like they're like, we should do this, we should do this. Although I'm saying like we should look into students' views on MuBot, we don't have any data on MuBot. Notice how this is connected to the report. The action items are based on the numeric findings in the report. So with reasoning, let's say, backed by numeric finding. Sorry. And trying to differentiate, because I think this is where confusion runs into. So this doesn't have numeric findings for it. We don't have numeric findings yet because this is future stuff. Does that help, Maria, to kind of differentiate action item 1 with reasoning backed by numeric findings? So like you're choosing that we'll do something right here based on your findings. This down here is more brainstorming. It doesn't have numeric findings yet. So there's no numeric findings for this. Yeah, I think that helps. Good questions, Maria. Maria, 100 points. Thank you for asking these things. I'm always trying to see where maybe the disconnect is. Exactly. I think most of what I put in the future research, exactly, Troy. So this is the catches right here that I'm trying to help with people, is that a lot of people end up putting action items in future research because the future research is more like we don't have the data yet. So when you do future research, it's more just like, hey, let's do this. Let's look into MuBot. Let's see if we need to add more mascots to the class. Like, how does having a class mascot kind of help out? I don't know. We need Mubot more often. One thing I've thought about is making like a storyline for the class. I don't know if it'd be cringe or not, but like a storyline where Mubot like takes over and like, I don't know. I want to script out the whole class. And I do have a really, so we just need one paragraph that talks about all the charts to compare to a paragraph for each report. Avery, can you go into more specific? It sounds like if you're talking about the charts, you're in here in the numeric findings. You want to give like key numeric findings. We've got 5 listed right there. That's probably enough. Like 5 key findings is probably enough to like summarize the key findings of the report. But to Avery, to your question right there, that's part of your executive summary. It sounds like you're in part of the executive summary where you're giving the numeric findings. So we need one paragraph. I think you're talking about this component of this paragraph right here that talks about the charts. Make sure to give the numeric finding. Make sure to give the values of it. And does that make sense, Avery? Hopefully I've answered right there. But it sounds like you're talking about this section of the executive summary. If you're talking about like the key findings from charts in the report, that will go into the executive summary and the numeric backing. And that would be, I made a little rubric over here. That would be this section, overview of results, as part of the executive summary. This is part 2, which I have highlighted right in here in the yellow. Any other questions? Okay, I would like to please review the intervention question. My question about Apple stocks at a 5-year. Overall, Apple has had a positive change in slope, slowly increasing in time with a small step downward. Yeah, that sounds great, Kelton. Awesome job, Avery. Also, could you say those steps down look slightly seasonal at a glance? I wouldn't talk about seasonality with it, Kelton. If you don't have it based on data. And Kelton, that looks good. I wouldn't say it's seasonal because seasonality is not really a step. A seasonal pattern is a seasonal pattern, but a step, I'll answer Kelton's question right here and we'll go into that. And Maria, the only way your action items are wrong is if you're like, you just suggest something. Exactly. Don't blend it. You're right, Kelton. Awesome work. Let me send out the announcement to class. Great job, everybody. I think people have a better understanding of what we're looking for. So how hard is the project? What are people's thoughts on the project? Like overall, how difficult is the project? So no rush. You got it. We'll do it next week, Kelton. How difficult is the project? Thoughts on difficulty of the project? Like, oh my gosh, project's impossible. Oh, maybe it is closed. We gotta look at Leo's thing. Leo might be right. Why would it be closed? No one submitted for this class. That's project 1. What? Look at Leo's question. Wait. Leo, are you... I only see one name it could be. No submission option. Oh. You're right. No submission option. How did that happen? No submission. Online. File uploads. Well. Leo, 500 points. Leo's very correct. How did one class have this and the other class didn't? Leo, 500 points for the class right there. No submission option. That's weird. How did that happen? You're right. Oops. It is fixed now. How did that happen? I'm glad it was published. We should have the project files uploaded right here. Yep, everything's uploaded. Weird. Weird. Why would one class have it and another class not? I don't know. We've had no issues with streaming today. Has there been any lag during these office hours right now? Has there been any lag? I made another change. I made a few changes. We got the football question left. Has there been any... I'm going to do Kelton's question right here. We do have the football question, which we haven't done. You don't like the other... Apparently, Dylan. Apparently not. I don't know why. So let's go here and do Kelton's question. BS. No lag. Awesome. I made a change, and I'm hoping it helped. Always hoping. Let's go over here. It looks like it's better. We'll find out, but maybe we fixed the lag issue for good. That'd be awesome. So, steps versus seasonality. Let's look right here. No lag. Yes. Versus steps or seasonality. or versus cycle. Ooh, a step versus a seasonality versus a cycle versus a spike. I'm missing one more. What was the last one we covered at the end of class? A spike versus a step versus seasonality. Oh, change in slope. This is kind of obvious what it is. Change in slope. Okay. Okay, so these are things that could occur in a time series. The first thing right here. Good. Yeah. The first thing is a change in slope. Great job, Kellen, right there, practicing knowing the differences. So really, whenever I'm complaining about the lag in 475, it's no, it might have been, I made some changes. So it could be your end, it could be my end. There's many points of failure in a system where you stream to YouTube. But I made some changes which might have fixed the issue. I'm always trying to research. I wish if I could get a person who streams to meet with me and go over everything, like if I could talk to Ninja or someone. Ninja, where you at? Pokemon, where you at? Zanabi? I don't know. Let's go talk to one of those streamers. I don't know. So many streamers. I wish I could just like have them like I've learned a lot by people who've taught me stuff, and there's so much more to learn. So I'm always trying to make improvements, but a lot of it's me teaching myself. So that's how far I get. Change in slope's an obvious one. Slope goes like this, slope goes like that, change in slope. That's an obvious one with a time series pattern right here. Spike is when you have something like attendance, like there was a spike on September 11th, and this is a spike downward. So the spike right here is this right here. That's the spike. Do you have a router that allocates a certain... I believe so, Kelton. I have a very good router. I could get you the numbers on it. We could look at that next here real quick. We're about to end, but I have a very, very good router. I've got like $300-400 equipment on router and modem. I could go find the... I'll go find that next, Kelton, and I'll tell you. But I need to make sure it's putting that bandwidth allocation and doing that. So there's the spike right there. Now a step... The best way to think about a step is if you had something like here, well, time series pattern, and it goes. Now, if you notice, what happens here, this is where the step occurs, and that'd be a step down. So notice the difference between a step and a spike. A spike is going to return to where it was at. Does that make sense what a spike is going to do? You could have a spike up, you could have a spike down. Like it just spikes in a direction. So a spike is going to do like that. That's a spike. So the spike is right here. And the spike's going to return to what it was. But a step is going to be like it's going to alter it and then it's going to change. Like you could connect this back like it's just stepped in a direction up or down. So you could have a step upward. Like maybe you could have a pattern like this. And then it steps and does this. So that's kind of a more, so that's not a spike anymore because a spike needs to go back. So comparatively, look at these two patterns right here where there's a step right there and then there's a spike. Does that make sense to see this right here, Dylan and Kelton? So if you look at the spike right there, the spike goes back to where it was, and the step, because now it actually looks like a step, the step is going to continue the pattern at which it was, but have a very quick sudden shift. So how do we tell the difference? So look at these slopes right here. What do you notice about the slope here and the slope here and the slope here and the slope here? What do you notice about the slope in all of these right here? What do you notice about the slope in all these patterns? The slope in all of these patterns are what? So if you look at all of these right here, the slope in all of those are very what? Which, ignore this one right here. I'd say it's similar enough. But the change in slope, when you look at the slope between these two series right here, what do you notice about them? Exactly, before and after the event, the slope stays the same down here. Relatively, I know this one's a little bit different, but this one right here has a positive slope, and then it steps downward, doesn't spike. This one has a positive slope. We could have made it more positive, spikes downward, and then returns. The slopes are essentially identical. So the change in slope is going to be, when you look at this right here, there's a slope here, then there's a slope. But if this is relatively flat and then spikes downward, it's still kind of relatively flat. If this is relatively flat, spikes upward, still relatively flat. If this is relatively flat and then steps upward, still relatively flat. So you could see a combination of stuff. Now you could hit a combo event, combo, where it does like this. So how would this be? I can't do it. Ah! How would this how would this be described right here? We're kind of drawing so there's the series, here's what happens, and then here's what happens here. So this right here is its own kind of like section off thing. What is going on right there? So just kind of, we're doing like textbook right here to see like a textbook event. I don't know. Sometimes you'd say there was a what, and then there was a what. So you have a relatively flat kind of random series, just kind of going along, just flat, random, white noise-ish, and then there's a what. But you could see this with stocks, maybe. All of a sudden, there's a huge buy-in, and then a... So what happened right here? Yeah, exactly. Step, then change in slope. So there was a step, and then a change in slope. The step is a sudden shift that maintains, but you could see... Like, you could change it to be... you could see maybe something like this occur. So now, what is this right here? Well, see, now we're combining them again, and it's just a little bit different. So now the series has a spike and then a change in slope. You could even have like a spike with a partial step. It's just the way you describe it. Like a spike is going to be it returns to where it was, but a step means it goes somewhere and then stays in that spot. So does that make sense? What a step versus a spike is? A spike is going. Oh, I didn't email this section. I want to make sure they show up to class. 20 minutes. Let me email this section really, really quick while we do this, and people ask questions. I've got their video made. Is if you email them, they're more likely to show up. We're gonna do a cup of coffee number 3. I am pretty sure I have a caffeine addiction. I am pretty certain. Because when this morning I woke up and I felt tired. Like I was like, I got my sleep, but I felt tired. Class in 20 minutes. See you soon. Click here. And then I drank my coffee and I started to recharge. Whew. Coffee, coffee, coffee. And so, let's see what people are saying. Yeah, no, this is a good way to remember stuff and good way to practice. Like, try drawing these patterns yourself. Try putting them on note cards and drawing them out. Seasonality is over a what period? Oh, good job, Kelton. I'll finish these off right here. Seasonality is over a fixed period. So if you have a seasonal pattern, it needs to be very fixed. I'm not doing a good job at that. Good enough. So seasonal pattern right here repeats every season, and we should see just this repeating seasonal pattern. Where the cycle, if something has a cycle is over a non-fixed period. So when you see a cycle, could be like there's some sort of cycle pattern in here, and the cycle does not have a fixed period. So this cycle pattern right here got a little bit of trend at the end, it looks like. There's some sort of cycle to this of grows and dips, but the inconsistent period length is showing us that it's more of a cycle and not a seasonal period. Seasonality is going to have consistent kind of growing and decreasing to it. If it very slowly returns back to where it was, is it then a spike? Yeah, it could. It's like, when is it a spike? When is it a step? When is it a change in slope? Like, things could spike and then have a very slow return to baseline. It could be like an extended spike or something like that. Like, think about this, Dylan. It's like the quickest of spike is a 1-point spike. Like, the quickest possible spike is 1 point, but things could spike for like a week. Like, imagine if you said, GameStop spiked for a week. Well, the prices jumped really high. So crash in 20. Let's look at that. Let's finish off office hours right here with a look at that and see 2008 Dow Jones. Let's go look at that. Dow Jones. We should be able to look at this. We should be able to get a time series of it. Can we not get a custom range on it? Max. Wait, that's not the max Dow Jones. I think 2008. What do you think here? You can't see it yet. 2008 is going to be in this period right here. What do you think 2008 is best described by with our terminology? Now that's COVID. Yeah, it looks different. So how I'll describe this. 2008 is more of a step because it goes down and then it just goes back on its pattern. Like if you see the pattern right here, that pattern, like this pattern right here is almost identical to this. So it's more of a slow step downward. So it's almost maybe a change in slope, but it's a slight, like there's a bit of a step downward, especially if you look at this period, like the huge loss right here. There was a bit of a change in slope and a big step downward, I'd say. So that's how I would describe the 2008. It was a bit of a step downward, a slight change. We saw a change in slope to begin with, and then some extreme steps downward. The stock market then returned to its usual slope that it had. So the change in slope wasn't maintained. The series had a slight change in slope and a big step downward before it returned to its series. It still stayed on the steps maintained. But 2020 is right here. 2020 is very clearly a what to me, which you could almost connect this series, which really indicates it's that. I didn't know stock market's leveled off now. So now stock market's going through a change of slope, but the fact that I could almost, and I'll show you why I would call it this, just to end off stars here. The big thing that I noticed and why I'd call it this, really. Okay, now I got it. If you look at this series right here, and you think of it, hasn't been fun, I'm sorry. Last 6 months or so. You could almost do this, Dylan. So with doing that right there, I'm really, and this is just classic. Like, what is that right there? The start of COVID saw a very big what in the stock market. So it's returning back pretty quickly. I would say a spike. Oh, I'm saying it now. A spike that lasted a few months. The stock market quickly spiked downwards, but then returned back to where it was. If you notice, it's going back to where it was pretty quickly, versus the other series was more of like a step downward. Because in in this series, it doesn't get back to it where it was pretty quickly. Like that's a spike. The step is going to take longer for it to kind of, it's almost like this is a series and this is a series. It's not going to connect back in, but this almost you could connect that back in. Does that make sense how I'm looking at it, Dylan? Like, when is it a step? When is it a spike? Well, that's more spike behavior right there, because it's jumping back up. It has a return. So the return, like, if it spikes down, it needs to spike back up. It doesn't need to go back on its usual stream back up. This one spikes down a little bit, but it doesn't spike back up. There's no spike up here. If it jumped back up here, and it needs to jump back at a decent rate, because then if it doesn't go back at the same rate back up, then it's more of a step. So that's probably some book right somewhere that like spikes are sudden shift down and sudden shift back up, whereas step is a sudden shift up or down, and then it doesn't go at the same rate. So I think that's a good example. This is more of a spike. This is more of a step, and you can see changes in slopes throughout the series. Stock market isn't always going crazy. The truth is when I started grad school, I should have just dumped all my money into the stock market. I could have just bought a index fund and gotten 3.5 times my money. Because every dollar I made, I should have just tossed it in and gotten 3.5 times my money. Well, that's got it. We'll head off right here. Until then, everybody, bye for now. Bye. Great office hours.